In 4E 168, the Empire's rule over Tamriel would be challenged by the Thalmor of the Somerset Isles, the result of which would change decades to come. When Titus Mede II ascended the Ruby Throne and was made the Emperor of Tamriel, the golden age of the Septine dynasty was long past. It had been more than an era since Titus Septine subdued Tamriel, uniting it under one banner. Whilst the Empire's grasp on Blackmarsh started to fade, Morrowind had been slipping away from Imperial rule after the eruption of Red Mountain, and Hammerfell had fallen into ruin in a war between the Crowns and Forebears, the two governing factions of Hammerfell. In the chaos, the Aldmeri Dominion had established a seat of power in the Empire's turmoil. The Aldmeri Dominion is the governing body of the Somerset Isles, and is made up of a radical group of Altmer who believe in Mer's superiority over man. Tensions began to rise when these radical elves began expanding Aldmeri influence across Tamriel. First in Valenwood, the ancestral home of the Bosmer, another race of Mer. They then took the homeland of the Khajiit, elsewhere. The Aldmeri Dominion sensed that the Empire was weak, and that they would be able to take advantage of it. On 4E 171, the Aldmeri sent an ambassador to the Imperial city to meet with the new Emperor, with a covered gift in a cart. The ambassador gave a list of strict demands, such as the dispatching of the Blades, who served as agents and guards of the Empire. Also, they demanded heavy tributes to be paid from the Empire. As well as this, they demanded large amounts of Hammerfell to be succeeded to the Dominion. One of the most drastic demands was the outlaw of Talos worship. The Altmer have never looked kindly upon Talos, mainly because he was man, not Mer, and to have man ascend to godhood clashes with the Thalmor's belief of elven superiority. Titus was warned by his generals that the Dominion had a far greater military, and that the depleted Empire would be unable to withstand the superior number of troops now that they shared multiple borders. Titus refused the Dominion's offer. The Aldmeri ambassador revealed the gift in the cart. Hundreds of severed heads spilt out. Every Blades agent in Valenwood and Somerset had been killed, and their heads put in the cart. The war had begun. For the next 5 years, a bloody and brutal war would consume the centre of Tamriel. Although the Empire was weak, and its legions were depleted, the Empire received help from the Bretons of High Rock and the Nords from Skyrim, who had remained relatively prosperous in these times. They sent great amounts of troops and supplies south to assist with the war effort. Within days of the war, the Dominion's troops invaded Hammerfell and Cyrodiil simultaneously. The Thalmor general Narafine attacked Cyrodiil from the south, through the forests of Elsewhere, and conquered key points along the Cyrodiil-Valenwood border. Within a year, the Dominion had pushed deeper and deeper into Cyrodiil, and within a year, they had reached the walls of the Imperial city, and a fierce naval battle had begun in the Remare. In Hammerfell, the Dominion also pushed into Imperial territory, with a swift invasion of the south coast, forcing the Imperials to face a long march across the Hammerfell wilderness. The Dominion's plan worked perfectly. They believed that the Imperial forces were even weaker than they first anticipated. The remaining Imperial legions from Hammerfell met with Breton support in the north of Hammerfell. A year later, the Empire's rule in Hammerfell started to make some advancements. Alongside the Forebears, the Imperials broke a siege in Hegath, which is ruled by the Crowns, which led to the two governing factions in Hammerfell making amends and siding with the Empire against a common enemy. With the war in the west starting to fail, the Thalmor started to take a bargain, deciding to focus majority of its military strength on the Imperial city, believing that if the capital fell, then they would be able to assume control over the other provinces. Whilst the Dominion moved on the capital, commanded by General Narfine, Emperor Titus Mede II decided to fight his way out of Cyrodiil, and retreated north to join up with majority of his forces. Whilst the Dominions took control of the city, the Imperial Palace was burned and the White-Gold Tower was looted. As well as this, a string of atrocities were carried out by the elves on the remaining residents of Cyrodiil. General Decianus, who had led the Imperial campaign in Hammerfell, began to gather his troops and planned to head east to march on Cyrodiil during the winter of 4174. The Thalmor were in complete control on Cyrodiil, and were expecting the other provinces to surrender soon. Emperor Titus Mede II created the illusion that he was preparing to surrender to the Thalmor, but he secretly was gathering his forces to retake the Imperial city. The Battle of the Red Ring was the deciding point of the war. The Empire had 3 armies to move upon the Imperial city. General Decianus, who had left Hammerfell with the majority of his forces, leaving a few legions behind to create the illusion that an Imperial army was still in Hammerfell. The second army was made up primarily of Nords from Skyrim, and the third army was led by the Emperor himself. With the Imperial city surrounded by what remained of the legions, and with no ordinary reinforcements close by, within 5 days of brutal combat, the Imperial city was retaken. It's rumoured that Titus, wielding his famous sword Goldbrand, was the first to enter the city, and Lord Narafine was captured. When Old Mary reinforcements arrived at the Imperial city to rescue Lord Narafine, they were blocked from entering by an Imperial shield wall. They were then surrounded and killed. It's rumoured that as justice for his heinous crimes against the Empire, Lord Narafine was hung from the White-Gold Tower, where he lasted 33 days, until, according to legend, he was carried off by a winged Daedra. Some would say it was a fitting end to someone who showed so much cruelty to man. With both sides having lost great amounts, both parties saw how a truce would be mutually beneficial. The White-Gold Concordat was written, which put an end to the war, but at great costs for the Empire. In order for the Old Mary Dominion to agree to the treaty, they had a list of terms that had to be met. The Old Mary Dominion demanded that a large portion of Hammerfell would be ceded to them. Outraged at this, the Red Guards started a separate war with the Old Mary, which they won, but the Empire was forced to denounce Hammerfell and take away its title as part of the Empire. As well as this, the Blades had to be disbanded, but the disbanded Blades began a shadow war against the Dominion, resulting in the majority of them being hunted down and assassinated. The few that escaped fled to Skyrim when the Civil War began, and were therefore harder to find. Also, the worship of Talos, the man-god hero, and the first emperor of the Septim dynasty was outlawed, meaning that the 9 divines became 8 again. This was not taken kindly, especially throughout Skyrim where Talos was said to originate from. One man who refused to agree to these terms was Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak of Windhelm. Jarl Ulfric had a bitter feeling towards the Dominion, as he fought in the war and was captured by the Dominion and tortured. This was very much the beginning of the civil war that would loom over Skyrim.